The downpour. Olivia Bennett clutched her leather portfolio to her chest as the first heavy raindrops splashed against the pavement. Perfect timing. Her 10-year-old Honda had chosen today of all days to surrender. Smoke billowing from beneath the hood just 3 miles from the Children's Rehabilitation Center, where she worked as a pediatric occupational therapist. Of course, she muttered, glancing at her watch, 6:30, and the sky had transformed from dusky blue to menacing charcoal in minutes. The weather forecast hadn't mentioned anything about a storm. Then again, April in Seattle was nothing if not unpredictable. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the deserted road ahead as Olivia trudged forward. The rehabilitation center was in a secluded area, surrounded by towering pines and winding roads. Beautiful on sunny days, absolutely treacherous now. Her phone showed no service, and the rain was quickly soaking through her thin cardigan. She'd just rounded a bend when headlights cut through the darkness behind her. Olivia stepped further off the shoulder, giving the approaching vehicle plenty of room. To her surprise, the sleek black Tesla slowed beside her, its passenger window humming down. "Need a ride?" The man's voice was deep with a slight rasp that suggested he didn't use it often. Olivia hesitated, rainwater dripping from her auburn hair into her eyes. "I'm fine, thanks. Just waiting for the tow truck." The lie felt necessary. Her mother had taught her never to accept rides from strangers, even in thunderstorms. The man leaned slightly across the console, and Olivia caught a glimpse of sharp cheekbones, dark eyes, and the kind of 5 o'clock shadow that looked deliberate rather than forgotten. In this weather? With no cell service for the next 3 miles? She frowned. "How did you know about my phone?" "Because mine doesn't work here either. This stretch is notorious for it." He gestured to the empty passenger seat. "Jackson Reed. I promise I'm not an axe murderer, just someone who'd feel terrible leaving you in this weather." Olivia bit her lip, weighing her options as thunder rumbled overhead. The rain was coming down in sheets now, and her portfolio, containing 6 months of patient progress notes she'd brought home to digitize, was getting dangerously wet. "Where are you headed?" she asked cautiously. "Downtown Seattle, but I can take you wherever you need to go." Another flash of lightning made her decision easier. "Olivia Bennett," she said, hurrying around to the passenger door he'd unlocked. "Thank you." The interior of the car was warm and smelled faintly of cedar. Jackson Reed wore no wedding ring, she noticed, and his clothes, a simple gray sweater and dark jeans, looked expensive in that understated way only truly fine things did. "Your car?" he asked, pulling back onto the road with careful precision. "Dead on the side of the road about half a mile back. I was heading home after work." Jackson nodded, his eyes fixed on the treacherous road. "What kind of work has you out here in the middle of nowhere?" "I'm a pediatric occupational therapist at Pine Haven Children's Rehabilitation Center. We work with kids recovering from accidents, illnesses, developmental challenges." Olivia couldn't help the warmth that crept into her voice. "It's not just a job, it's a calling," Jackson finished with surprising understanding. "You can tell when someone's found their purpose." Something in his tone made Olivia look at him more carefully. His profile was striking. Strong jaw, straight nose, and eyes that seemed to carry shadows beneath them despite his composed demeanor. "What about you?" she asked. "What brings you out to the middle of nowhere in a storm?" A slight smile curved his mouth. "Would you believe me if I said I was lost? In a car with navigation this sophisticated? Not for a second." His smile widened, revealing a small dimple in his right cheek. "Caught. Truth is, I come out here to think sometimes. The quiet helps." As they drove through the storm, Olivia found herself talking more than she usually would with a stranger. About her patients, her dreams of opening a sensory-friendly community center someday, even her disastrous morning when she'd spilled coffee on her only clean pair of scrubs. By the time they reached her modest apartment building in North Seattle, the storm had begun to ease. But something else had started. Something neither of them had anticipated when lightning first cracked across the sky. Ripple's Jackson Reed stared at the business proposal on his laptop screen, but his mind kept drifting to the rain-soaked woman he'd driven home 3 days ago. Olivia Bennett? Even her name felt refreshing, honest, and unpretentious. Like her laugh when she'd told him about the 5-year-old patient who'd called her Miss Olivia Octopus because she could help with so many things at once. Mr. Reed, his executive assistant Dominic, cleared his throat from the doorway of Jackson's penthouse office. "The board is waiting for your decision on the Singapore expansion." Jackson blinked, forcing himself back to reality. As founder and CEO of Quantum Shield Technologies, a cybersecurity firm valued at $4.2 billion, his every decision affected thousands of employees. Yet he couldn't focus on Singapore when his thoughts kept returning to the small apartment building where he'd dropped Olivia off. "Tell them I'll have an answer tomorrow," Jackson said, closing his laptop. "I need to check something first." Dominic's eyebrow arched slightly. Jackson never postponed board decisions, but he nodded and withdrew. An hour later, Jackson parked his Tesla several blocks from Pine Haven Children's Rehabilitation Center. He'd traded his usual tailored clothes for jeans and a simple button-down, his one concession to disguise being a pair of glasses he didn't need. The last thing he wanted was to be recognized. Fame had come unexpectedly 3 years ago, when Quantum Shield had prevented a massive international banking breach. Overnight, Jackson had transformed from an intensely private tech entrepreneur to the cyber guardian, splashed across magazine covers. He'd hated every second of it, retreating further from public view even as his company expanded. Now, clutching a paper bag from a local bakery, he hesitated outside the rehabilitation center's cheerful entrance. What was he doing here? This wasn't like him. He didn't pursue women. He didn't make impulsive decisions. Yet something about Olivia's genuine warmth had created ripples in his carefully ordered life, ripples that had grown into waves he couldn't ignore. Inside, colorful murals of forests and oceans covered the walls. A receptionist with a bright smile looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Olivia Bennett," Jackson said, trying to sound casual. "I have something for her. She's in the sensory garden with Theo." Through those doors and to the left, Jackson followed the directions and found himself in a beautiful, indoor garden filled with plants of varying textures, musical installations, and colorful light features. In the center, Olivia knelt beside a boy in a wheelchair, guiding his hands to touch different plants. "This one feels rough, right?" Her voice was gentle. "And this one is smooth. Your brain is learning to process these feelings again. Theo, you're doing amazing work." The boy, who appeared to be about 8, smiled shyly, his movements halting but determined. Jackson stood frozen, suddenly feeling like an intruder in this sacred space of healing. He was about to retreat when Olivia looked up and saw him. Surprise flickered across her face, followed by a smile that made his practiced composure falter. "Jackson, what are you doing here?" He held up the bakery bag awkwardly. I wanted to make sure you were okay after the storm. And I brought muffins. For your break." He winced internally at his fumbling words. He negotiated billion-dollar deals with more eloquence than this. Theo looked between them curiously. "Is he your boyfriend, Miss Olivia?" A blush crept across Olivia's cheeks. "No, Theo. Mr. Reed is someone who helped me during the storm the other day. Very kind of him to check on me." She turned to Jackson. "I'm finished with Theo's session in 10 minutes. Would you like to wait?" 15 minutes later, they sat on a bench in the rehabilitation center's courtyard, sharing blueberry muffins and coffee from the center's cafeteria. "You didn't need to check on me," Olivia said, but her smile suggested she was pleased he had. "I know," Jackson admitted, "but I wanted to." The simple truth felt foreign on his tongue. In his world, motives were always carefully calculated. "So what do you do, Jackson Reed? You never actually said the other night." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I work in technology, computer security." Like an IT guy? She looked genuinely interested, not probing for status or connections like the people he usually encountered. "Something like that," he said, relieved by her acceptance of his vague answer. "Not nearly as meaningful as your work," Olivia shook her head. "Every job has meaning if it helps people. Are you protecting their information? Keeping their data safe? That matters." As they talked, Jackson felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The simple pleasure of being seen as just a man, not a billionaire, not a tech genius, not a corporate target. Just Jackson, when he finally left, promising to call her for dinner sometime. The ripples had become a current, pulling him toward something both terrifying and exhilarating. A connection he hadn't planned for and couldn't control. Back in his car, Jackson smiled as he typed Olivia's number into his phone. For the first time in years, he was following his heart instead of an algorithm, and it felt like waking up from a long, dreamless sleep. Thunder rolls. The restaurant's ambient lighting cast a warm glow across Olivia's face as she laughed at Jackson's story about his first failed attempt at coding. 3 weeks had passed since their muffin meeting, and they'd seen each other 5 times, casual dinners, a walk through the sculpture park, and once, a visit to the rehabilitation center where Jackson had surprisingly connected with the children, showing them simple coding tricks on tablets. "So wait," Olivia said, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "You accidentally crashed your entire university system?" Jackson nodded, enjoying how easy it was to share his past with her. "For 6 hours. The dean wanted to expel me until Professor Whitaker pointed out that I'd exposed a critical security flaw. That's when I realized cybersecurity was my calling." He carefully omitted how that moment had led to founding Quantum Shield, or that the company's revolutionary security algorithm had made him a fortune. For now he was just Jackson, a man falling for a woman who saw through his carefully constructed walls. To callings, Olivia raised her wine glass, and to people brave enough to follow them. Across the restaurant, a camera flash went off. Jackson tensed, instinctively angling his body away from the light. His wariness of publicity had become second nature after years of avoiding it. "Everything okay?" Olivia asked, noticing his sudden shift. "Fine," he said, forcing a smile. "Just thought I saw someone I knew." Their evening continued pleasantly, but as Jackson drove Olivia home, an uneasy feeling settled in his stomach. The flash hadn't been coincidental. He'd recognized Vince Harlow, a photographer known for working with technology publications. His suspicion was confirmed the next morning when Dominic called. "Sir, you might want to see this." His assistant's voice was tense. "It's in today's Tech Pulse online edition." Jackson opened the link to find a grainy photo of himself and Olivia at dinner, beneath the headline, "Quantum Shield CEO's New Strategy. Sources say Jackson Reed's interest in healthcare worker could signal major acquisition in medical technology sector." Cold anger washed over him. The article implied his relationship with Olivia was a business maneuver to gather insider information on healthcare systems before a corporate takeover. It quoted anonymous sources close to Reed, claiming his sudden interest in rehabilitation centers aligned with Quantum Shield's rumored expansion into medical data security. It was exactly the kind of manipulative speculation he'd come to expect from Victor Ramsey, CEO of rival security firm Pinnacle Defense, and the man who'd been trying to undermine Quantum Shield for years. "Get our legal team on this," Jackson told Dominic, "and find out if Ramsey's behind it." His next call was to Olivia, but it went straight to voicemail. He left a message asking her to call him, trying to sound calm despite his growing concern. By afternoon, things had worsened. Someone had leaked Olivia's full name and workplace to social media, where speculation ran wild. Several reporters had shown up at Pine Haven, forcing the administration to ask them to leave for the children's privacy. When Jackson's phone finally rang, Olivia's voice was cool and distant. "Care to explain why there are reporters asking if I'm helping you infiltrate the healthcare sector?" "Olivia, it's not true." "None of it." Jackson paced his office. "Someone's trying to create problems for me by dragging you into this." "Into what exactly?" Her voice sharpened. "Because until today I didn't even know who you really were, Jackson. Or should I say, Mr. Reed, cybersecurity billionaire? Were you ever going to tell me?" The hurt in her voice cut deeper than he'd expected. "I was going to tell you tonight, actually. I just wanted you to know me first. Not my company or my bank account. Well, congratulations. Now I know both, along with everyone at Pine Haven. Dr. Winters had to escort a reporter off the property during Theo's therapy session." Her voice cracked slightly. "These kids deserve better than that." "I'll fix this," Jackson promised, already formulating a plan. "Just, please, can we talk in person?" The silence stretched long enough that he thought she might hang up. Finally, she sighed. "The damage is done. But these children are my priority, Jackson. I can't have their safe space compromised. I understand. What if I come to you? Somewhere private, away from cameras?" Another pause. "Fine. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. Roasted Revival, 8 o'clock. When they met that evening, the coffee shop was nearly empty. Olivia looked exhausted, her usual vibrant energy dimmed by the day's events. Jackson had arrived early, securing a corner table away from windows. "I've released a statement denying any business interest in healthcare acquisitions," he said after they'd settled with their drinks. And I've filed for a restraining order against the more aggressive photographers. Olivia studied him, her green eyes searching his face. Why didn't you just tell me who you were? Because people change when they know, Jackson admitted. They either want something from me or they're intimidated by me. For once, I just wanted to be normal. There's nothing normal about hiding part of your identity from someone you're dating, Olivia countered, but her tone had softened slightly. You're right. I should have trusted you. He hesitated, then reached for her hand across the table. I'd like to start over. Properly this time. No secrets. Outside thunder rolled across the sky, another spring storm brewing. But as Olivia's fingers tentatively interlaced with his, Jackson felt a cautious hope that they might weather this one together too. No more secrets, she agreed quietly. And no more putting my patience at risk. I promise, Jackson said, meaning it more than any business deal he'd ever made. For the first time, he realized he'd found something more valuable than all his technological innovations. A chance at real connection. If only the storm of publicity would pass. Lightning's path. Absolutely not. Jackson's voice echoed through his penthouse living room as he faced Dominic and his public relations director, Harriet Wells. I won't use my relationship with Olivia for publicity. Harriet adjusted her glasses with a sigh. Mr. Reed, since the TechPulse article, Quantum Shield's stock has risen 8%. Investors like seeing you as, well, human, the reclusive genius finding love with a dedicated therapist who helps children. It's PR gold. It's exploitation, Jackson countered, and it ends now. 6 weeks had passed since the coffee shop reconciliation. The media storm had initially intensified. Victor Ramsey had indeed been behind the leak, hoping to create exactly this kind of distraction before Quantum Shield's major security platform launch. But gradually, as Jackson refused all comments and Olivia maintained her privacy, the frenzy had subsided to occasional speculation. What hadn't subsided was the intensity of their connection. Dinners had become sleepovers. Casual conversations had deepened into discussions about childhood dreams and adult fears. Jackson had found himself sharing parts of his life he'd never revealed to anyone. His mother's early death, his father's emotional distance, the loneliness that had driven him to find companionship in computer code rather than people. Olivia had listened without judgment, offering her own vulnerabilities in return, her parents' bitter divorce, her struggle to pay off student loans, her fear that her work, while meaningful, would never create the systemic change needed in pediatric care. Fine, Harriet conceded, gathering her rejected PR proposals, but at least consider attending the Children's Medical Foundation Gala next month. You've avoided public appearances for 3 years, and this is for a good cause. After his team departed, Jackson wandered to his floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle's skyline. Rain streaked the glass, distorting the city lights into watery halos. He thought about Olivia, who was working late at Pine Haven tonight helping a new patient adjust. Their worlds remained stubbornly separate despite their deepening relationship. He'd visited her at work several times, always careful to arrive without fanfare. She'd come to his penthouse, expressing admiration but also visible discomfort with its opulence. Neither space felt fully shared. His phone chimed with Olivia's ringtone, a whimsical melody she'd selected herself. Hey, he answered, smiling involuntarily. How's the new patient settling in? Better now. Her voice carried the soft satisfaction he'd come to recognize when she'd made progress with a child. Amber was terrified at first, but we found out she loves butterflies. I showed her our butterfly garden, and it was like watching a different child emerge. You're amazing with them. Jackson meant it. He'd witnessed her patient, intuitive approach, how she seemed to understand what each child needed before they knew themselves. I actually called about something else, Olivia said. Dr. Winters mentioned that Pine Haven lost its major funding source. The Franklin Foundation is redirecting their grants to cancer research. Jackson immediately understood the implication. How much do they need? That's not why I called, she said quickly. I'm not asking for money, Jackson. It's just, there's a fundraising committee meeting tomorrow. I thought maybe you might have some ideas. You understand business and technology in ways we don't. I'll be there, he promised. The next evening, Jackson sat in Pine Haven's conference room, surrounded by dedicated therapists, administrators, and parents who loved the center. As they discussed traditional fundraising approaches, bake sales, silent auctions, corporate sponsorship letters, he felt a growing certainty about what needed to be done. Pinehaven doesn't just need a fundraiser, he said when Dr. Winters asked for his input. It needs sustainable funding and technological innovation. He outlined a vision: custom-developed therapeutic software, virtual reality systems designed specifically for rehabilitation, and a foundation that would support not just Pinehaven, but similar centers nationwide. The room had fallen silent, everyone staring at him with expressions ranging from hope to skepticism. "That sounds wonderful, Mr. Reed," Dr. Winters said carefully. "But we're talking about millions of dollars in technology that doesn't exist yet." "I can provide both," Jackson said simply. Later, as they walked to his car, Olivia was unusually quiet. "What's wrong?" he asked, reaching for her hand. "I thought you'd be excited." "I am," she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "It's just, when you offered all that, I suddenly realized how different our worlds really are. You can solve with a checkbook what we've been struggling with for years." "Isn't that a good thing?" Jackson asked, confused by her reaction. "I want to help." "It is good for the children," she acknowledged. "But for us..." She stopped walking, turning to face him fully. "Jackson, I fell in love with the man who picked me up in a rainstorm and brought me muffins, not a billionaire who can casually donate millions of dollars." The word love hung between them, the first time either had used it. Instead of joy, Jackson felt a stab of fear. "I'm both of those people," he said quietly. "The money doesn't change who I am with you, doesn't it?" Olivia challenged gently. "You live in a world where problems get solved with money and influence. I live in one where we fight for every small victory, where progress is measured in a child taking one more step than yesterday. I'm not sure those worlds can truly merge." Thunder rumbled in the distance, another storm approaching. Jackson felt the precipice they stood upon, the fork in lightning's path that would either bring them closer or separate them forever. "Come with me," he said suddenly, taking her hand. "There's something I need to show you." He drove them to a modest neighborhood in North Seattle, parking outside a small, well-kept house with a for sale sign in the yard. "What is this?" Olivia asked as they stood on the sidewalk, rain beginning to speckle around them. "I bought it yesterday," Jackson admitted. "Not to pressure you, but because it reminded me of the house you said you grew up in. I've been thinking about downsizing, getting away from the artificial world I've built around myself." Olivia stared at the house, then at him, her expression unreadable in the gathering darkness. "I don't want our worlds to stay separate," Jackson continued. "I want to find our own path somewhere between your reality and mine." He took a deep breath. "I love you, Olivia. The money, the company, they're just things. You're the lightning strike that changed everything." The rain fell harder as they stood at this crossroads, the future unwritten between them as thunder echoed across the city once more. After the storm, the Children's Medical Foundation Gala transformed the Seattle Art Museum into a wonderland of twinkling lights and elegant decorations. In the center of the grand hall, Jackson stood in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, simultaneously at ease in this world of wealth and power and strangely detached from it. His attention remained fixed on Olivia across the room, who was speaking animatedly with a group of neurologists about adaptive therapy techniques. She wore a simple emerald gown that matched her eyes, her auburn hair swept into an elegant updo. The sight of her still took his breath away even after 6 months together, 6 months of navigating their different worlds. 6 months of learning to compromise, to communicate, to build something neither had expected. "Mr. Reed." Victor Ramsey appeared at his elbow, champagne flute in hand, an insincere smile in place. Quite the transformation, from tech hermit to philanthropist and family man. Jackson maintained his composure, though the mention of family man struck closer to home than Ramsey could know. "Victor, I'm surprised they let you in given your company's recent security breaches." Ramsey's smile tightened. "Temporary setbacks. Though I must say, your new Pinehaven Foundation is quite the clever move. Healthcare data is the next frontier in cybersecurity after all." "The foundation has nothing to do with business," Jackson replied evenly. "Some things are simply worth doing because they're right." Ramsey chuckled. "Still playing the saint for your therapist girlfriend?" We both know everything is business, Reed. No, Victor, that's where you've always been wrong. Jackson spotted Olivia making her way toward them. Some things are just about being human. He excused himself, meeting Olivia halfway across the room. Her smile warmed as he approached, though he noted the slight fatigue around her eyes. The past few months had been demanding for them both. Launching the Pinehaven Foundation, developing the therapeutic software Jackson had envisioned, and most challenging of all, finding their balance together. They had decided against moving in together immediately. Instead, Jackson had kept his penthouse but spent most nights at the North Seattle house, which they had renovated together. Olivia had maintained her apartment but left more and more of her belongings at the house, a gradual migration that felt natural rather than forced. "Ready to give your speech?" she asked, straightening his bow tie. Jackson captured her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "As ready as I'll ever be. You've heard me practice it a dozen times, and it gets better every time," she assured him. "Just speak from your heart, like you did that night in the rain." 20 minutes later, Jackson stood at the podium, hundreds of Seattle's wealthiest and most influential citizens watching expectantly. The speech he'd prepared, eloquent phrases about innovation and the future of therapeutic technology, suddenly felt hollow. 316, he began instead. "That's how many children have been helped at Pinehaven Rehabilitation Center in the past year alone. 316 young lives working to overcome challenges most of us can't imagine." He spotted Olivia in the crowd, her expression shifting from surprise to understanding. "I could talk about technological advances or investment opportunities," Jackson continued. "But that's not why we're really here. We're here because of Theo, who couldn't feel his fingers after a car accident but can now play the piano again. Because of Amber, who was too frightened to speak after trauma but now tells butterfly stories to anyone who will listen." The room had fallen completely silent. 6 months ago, I thought I understood value. I measured it in stock prices and market share. Then I met someone who showed me what really matters, not what we build or own, but who we help along the way. His eyes found Olivia's again, seeing them shimmer with unshed tears. The Pinehaven Foundation isn't just about funding or technology. It's about recognizing that true innovation means nothing if it doesn't improve real lives. Every child deserves the chance to reach their potential, regardless of their circumstances. By the time Jackson finished speaking, the gala had raised over $12 million, 3 times their goal. As the evening wound down, he found Olivia on the museum's balcony, gazing out at the city lights. "That wasn't the speech we practiced," she said as he joined her, her voice teasing but tender. "I decided to speak from my heart, as advised by a very wise woman." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Did it work?" $12 million says it did." She leaned back against him. "But more importantly, you connected with those people. They saw the children, not just another charity." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the spring night unusually clear after months of Seattle rain. "I have something for you," Jackson said finally, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out not a ring box as might be expected, but a simple key. Olivia turned in his arms, looking at the key with raised eyebrows. "Another house?" "The deed to Pinehaven," he explained. "I bought the property from the landlords who were raising the rent. It now belongs to the foundation, with a 100-year lease at $1 per year." Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she took the key. "Jackson, and this," he added, producing a small velvet pouch, "is something else." From the pouch, he removed a delicate silver chain with a pendant, a small lightning bolt crafted from titanium, embedded with tiny diamonds that caught the light. "Because you were the lightning strike that changed everything," he said softly, echoing his words from that rainy night months ago. "And I hope you'll keep illuminating my path if you'll have me." "Are you proposing?" Olivia asked, her voice catching. "Not yet," Jackson smiled, fastening the necklace around her neck. "That's coming, but I wanted to do this first. To show you that I understand what matters to you, and that I'm committed to building our worlds together. Not mine, not yours, but something new." Olivia touched the lightning bolt pendant, then reached up to trace his jawline. "You know, when you first picked me up that stormy night, I never imagined we'd end up here." "Where did you think we'd end up?" he asked, pulling her closer. "I thought you'd drop me off and that would be the end of it," she admitted. "Just a kind stranger in a moment of connection." "And now?" Olivia smiled. the same genuine smile that had first captivated him. Now I know sometimes the storm brings exactly what you need, even when you didn't know you were looking for it. As they kissed under the starry sky, Jackson reflected on their journey, from a chance meeting in a downpour to this moment of clarity and purpose. They still had challenges ahead, his tendency toward workaholism, her fierce independence, the ongoing balance between his wealth and her practical nature. But he no longer feared those challenges. Like the children at Pine Haven, they would face each obstacle with patience, determination, and the knowledge that the most meaningful growth often comes after the greatest storms. Thunder rumbled in the distance, nature's reminder of how they'd begun. But this time, neither of them minded the approach of rain. After all, they'd already found their shelter in each other.